So within the article, if it was a South Sudanese or African more broadly offender, usually in the third or fourth word of the article was something about skin colour or perceived country of birth. Whereas offences that focused on perhaps a white Australian, race either wasn't mentioned, or if it was kind of deep down towards the end of the story. The media has a lot to account for. They are consistently saying, hey, these guys don't fit in with us. When most of the general population get their news from the mainstream media, of course they're going to believe what they hear. We had this initial wave of media coverage of stereotyping and labelling.
They don't belong with us, they're not part of us. That's what fear-mongering does.
The coverage that they have portrayed has consistently and repeatedly focused on African immigrants more broadly as being the other.
Being presented, calling them packs, gangs, comparisons that have connotations with the animals.
The report that we published at the end of last year was based on some research that we did with South Sudanese young people, and we were talking to them about the effects of the recent media coverage following the Moomba 2016 riots. According to us, our definitions, it wasn't a riot. It wasn't organised, it wasn't targeted against a certain group of people or a certain event. Then the media coverage that followed that, and then the effect that that coverage has had on their feelings of belonging and inclusion in Victoria. And so a lot of the coverage then was talking about the presence of African gangs, the violent nature of Africans sort of more broadly. The things that really came clear to us when we were analysing some of the newspaper coverage was the way that stories involving an alleged South Sudanese offender, the way that they were conveyed. So within the article, if it was a South Sudanese or African more broadly offender, usually in the third or fourth word of the article was something about skin colour or perceived country of birth. Whereas offences that focused on perhaps a white Australian, race either wasn't mentioned, or if it was kind of deep down towards the end of the story. The media has a lot to account for. They are consistently saying, hey, these guys don't fit in with us. When most of the general population get their news from the mainstream media, of course they're going to believe what they hear.
It hurts a lot. Like my younger brother, my younger sister actually were born in Australia.
Yeah.
And this time that we just come home frustrated and like just full of rage and whatnot. And I'm like, guess I'm Australian, right? I'm like, yeah, technically you are, but unfortunately the society around you don't accept it. And that's a very worrying sign.
Our young people were being demonized, and the whole community was being treated as if this is a community full of gangs and all that people committing crime, left, right, and center. And I said, this has to stop. I tweeted and I said, instead of my name, I'm going to put a member of the African gangs. And it did. Within 10 hours, it was trending worldwide. It was the #1 trend in Australia on the social media. It told the stories of the community by the community as we saw them and as we know them. They were not stories being collated by the media or other people outside the community. It's the actual community members turning up and saying, this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. So that's what fear-mongering does. It really removes the victim from the conversation, and it drives a wedge between people, and it makes members of the community to be ostracized, to be excluded from the community and all that.
I had to do something. Someone had to respond. Setting a bad image of Sudanese people, where in fact there are a lot of great Sudanese people who are doing great things.
We're not as bad as you think we are. Let us live while you're making our life hard. We're not as bad as you paint us, not at all. Some of us are bad, but not as dangerous as you think.
I think our intentions should never be towards changing anyone's mind. For somebody to change their mind, it's up to them if they want to learn more about the community. But what we should be focusing on is helping our community to stand on its feet.